Welcome to the second part of our interview with Dr. Ana Trbović, member of the UN Task Force on Digitalization in Energy and co-founder of Energy Vamp and Grid Singularity, working on digital and decentralized solutions for the energy transition. In this part, we will explore the key technologies enabling flexibility, the associated risks, and the practical steps needed to implement it effectively in modern energy systems. Anna, welcome back.
Thank you.
So our next question is, how critical are smart metering, advanced data management, and cybersecurity for reliable flexibility mechanisms?
They are essential. They're really essential. What you cannot measure, you cannot integrate in any digital tool. What is not measured is really excluded in the end, and it's a resource that you cannot optimize in any way. And there we come to also the topic of who has access to the data. And does the citizen have enough information about who accesses their data, with what purpose? Do they have a choice? Are they provided with sufficient choices in terms of services that they could benefit from? At the moment, that is a no. And this is where we have a role of regulators and grid operators to bridge that gap, to facilitate a greater choice and higher quality of services to the citizens, while also protecting their data. And many of us, when we download an app, we never read the terms, and we don't know how exactly our data is used or misused. So some of that debate is misplaced because, unfortunately, we often choose convenience over full protection. There's always some type of a trade-off. But with energy data, we have to be more careful and at the minimum make sure that it cannot be exploited in a way that harms our security, both physical and also economical, because it is an ingredient in industry and it's vital to our daily lives. I was in Portugal when we had the blackout last June, and when you go through it yourself versus hear about it, it is really a different experience. And even though you assume in theory, what you need the electricity for, one of the things like being left even without a phone in the afternoon makes you feel very insecure in that you cannot reach other people unless they live in the vicinity, and therefore the fact that there is a strong focus on data security in that sector is completely understandable.
In the last 15-20 years, we have a lot of discussions about smart meter rollout, then later data protection, then security. And what do you think? Is this process in Europe successfully finished and completed, or you have space? You see space for?
It's in progress, I would say. Not completed, it's in progress. And some countries are more advanced than others, obviously. Some countries have some very interesting innovation tools. UK is one of them. UK has a very interesting innovation body, and they have many regulatory test beds. Do they move as fast as they could to mainstream those innovations? Never fast enough for an entrepreneur. But they are one example, and then other countries also try, and Europe has this through Horizon projects. And we are moving in the right direction. It's just that people like me would prefer a much faster pace.
Maybe we can say that many countries finish smart meter rollout, and that DCOs have data, but maybe the other actors on the market do not have.
Yes, or maybe they don't have all the data or not at the right granularity, and many of them, for the right reason, started with consumption. They have systems that could also be expanded to also meet their production flexibility, to get the citizens to have a higher capacity to be involved in more services. There's also the issue that for grid security, we have a very conservative management in place, again, for all the right reasons. But in the case of a blackout, even you who have your own PV panel, for example, in a home, are not able to use it because it's just cut off for security reasons. And then you are confused. And you say, okay, well, I thought I was independent, but no, you are still part of a wider system. There is still a certain danger posed by electricity being in the grid, and we still don't have the right mechanisms to manage that well, and therefore it's just shut down. And this requires a higher level of digitization at the grid level, different interconnections, substations, especially, and once that is there, then citizens will be fully self-sufficient, as they would like to be. Many, especially those that are very green oriented.
Okay, from one side, you mentioned that in the first part of our interview, and we can say that data are in DCO and are not enough open for the other actors on the market. And
there is a process.
It is a process, okay.
But it's quite bureaucratic. It's quite bureaucratic, yes.
But probably they are afraid also.
Absolutely,
from security reasons.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but from the other side,
I would say cautious is a better word, right? It's their job to be cautious.
Yeah. But from the other side, I don't hear for any security problem attack in Europe. Do you know for any problem in DCO?
At the house level or the DSO
on
level?
DSO level.
There have been issues at DSO level, and there have been issues that are not widely discussed. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we will not hear stories about it.
Well, it is a legitimate concern, mm-hmm. right? It is data that could be weaponized, and it is data that could cause a disruption. More importantly, there could also just be a technical fault. So I'm fully aware and fully understanding of the caution that is taken. And but it is also data that is the source of, that is the input for any service to be provided to the citizens. So we need to find a way to enable secure, informed access for citizens, which is why also in many innovation projects that we're involved with, we have a partner that looks at this social and citizen aspects as well. And they are very important to the success of any commercialization.
Yeah. Okay. So we can go on the next question. If you were advising a distribution system operator or regulator in Europe today, what would be the first realistic and high impact step toward implementing market-based flexibility?
It depends on the country. In many countries, DSOs are not allowed to manage energy communities, for example, but they are meant to facilitate and support them. Mm-hmm. In some countries, they can manage them directly. Mm-hmm. It's very different. Mm-hmm. If they can manage them, or anyone that can, I would encourage them to look at many applications that are already available to do this. Otherwise, and this is difficult because some DSOs are very small, some are larger, but they really should make progress with understanding TOU models that are available to them, and looking into applying those models to source flexibility from energy communities, and not just look at how these can be contained, right? Because at the moment, the focus is on containing any issue with too much surplus being ingested in the grid, rather than saying, maybe I should consider how I can source this flexibility from multiple communities instead of buying more expensive flexibility that's further away, like from a wind park in the north. This is the new way, understanding how congestion management can be implemented in a smarter way through energy communities, and looking also into how they can support trading between communities, because that will reduce the need for energy import for a wider region or a country.
Yeah. Do you see, okay, you mentioned time of use for consumption pricing, but do you see in the future that some consumers will want to have a market-based price because they will put batteries, solar plants, and maybe they will be able then to manage?
Oh, it's all about market-based, right? It's all about market-based. I mean, demand response is a very simple application that says, if you don't consume at a certain time, you will save money, right? You shift the demand. Or you can even be paid by the grid operator not to consume at a certain hour, because it's cheaper for them to pay you not to consume than to get energy from another area to manage, to balance the grid. Energy trading is the more sophisticated app, where based on that moment in time, you will sell your surplus energy because you don't need it to your neighbor. Your neighbor will buy that energy at a lower price than from an external supplier, simply because it's there, costs less, anything that your neighbor does not need, you can either sell to the grid at relatively low price, most places in Europe now, if at any price. But maybe the grid operator will say, I really need the flexibility from this community now, and I'll give them a better price. And maybe you will sell to the grid operator instead of your neighbor because the price is better. This is what can occur. And this is what I meant by a shift in how you see a market, because at the moment, everyone is saying the goal is to increase self-consumption. The goal is to get this community to be independent from the grid, not to be a burden from the grid. Well, maybe self-consumption is not a goal in every time slot. Maybe in a certain time slot, the self-consumption should be reduced because the flexibility they can sell to the grid operator to manage an issue close by, but not in that area, has a higher value. And this is where we need to get to. And to get there, we need to increase the potential flexibility, which means that we need to find a way to help people to share batteries legally, so that they can take more advantage of the locally produced energy, either for their own consumption or to sell as a resource to the grid operator or an aggregator or whoever the external buyer would be. And the next aspect that you probably wonder about is what is this next market? Because many of the aggregation markets they deal with higher, sellers who have a higher volume. and therefore we need something in between for these smaller producers, smaller flexibility providers, to become part of that wider market and to get a better price than they're getting at the moment. But still, even if you are just have this minimum energy sharing within a community, you're in a much better shape than what most prosumers have today, which is they really cannot do much. They can only sell surplus to the grid at not an amazing price anymore, right?
Yeah, but in many states, law define the new market player aggregator. And do you see in any country successful implementation of aggregators?
Well, absolutely. And we have now startups that have grown to be larger companies and more interesting players. And the challenge there is to manage the liquidity. And because you are, as an aggregator, you're a trader, and there is that financial aspect that you also have to take care of, especially as that market grows, as the number of participants grows, because you're looking at reserves, you're looking at forecasts. It's almost like a financial application in the end, except your commodity is energy.
Okay, but maybe aggregators can technically manage the system and be part of any existing trader. You don't see...
An aggregator is a very broad term.
Yeah.
You can say that an energy community is an aggregator. It depends what you call an aggregator. But the point is that at the moment, as I believe we repeated at least 3 times, it's due to data access limitations, which also includes some regulatory nuances, reporting nuances. The focus is on larger assets. So we need to take another step to be able to include all of these small assets, because altogether they're a very interesting flexibility potential and a growing flexibility potential, and therefore an untapped resource. An untapped resource in an era where we have geopolitical changes that have significantly impacted the price of energy, and where people are rightfully concerned about their energy security. And therefore, we see now more people buying electric vehicles. We see more people buying PV panels. And we see a very high interest from the citizens to be involved. And if we want the energy transition to be successful, we need the citizens to be involved, and we need to help them by providing them the means and the education. In Germany, what became very popular is the so-called balcony PV system. And it's very typical, not just for Germany, but any country that has this positive law, meaning that you have to prescribe what is actually allowed to be able to implement it with ease, even though in reality, this could have been done before because it was not prohibited. But it was only after it was specifically allowed, and it was at the proposal of Germany that it was even added as a specific provision in the EU law, that people finally started getting involved and getting this PV system that you can buy online and just put on your balcony and very easily install. And I have friends in Berlin who charge their car with their balcony PV. And so this works. The citizens will react if you give them an easy means, a product that is easy to understand. There's really, we really need to facilitate that and celebrate that as a society, with all the concerns that we have, progress faster to use the resources that we have.
Okay, so you see some progress in citizens engagement?
Citizens, it's not really, I mean, they're never at fault for not being engaged. As noted, some will be engaged due to their environmental goals, but most will very quickly react for economic reasons. This is very much expected, and in this case, very valuable to engage them, to invest in sustainable resources, and to relieve the need for bigger capacity investment and bigger grid investment. We will still need the grid investment, but if we do more locally, if we consume what is produced locally more and have more of these connections within energy communities and neighborhoods and energy communities with other communities, we're creating a bottom-up market design that is more resilient. Okay.
And one personal question for the end of our interview: what is the most important lesson you learned throughout your career?
I don't know if that means that I've come to an age to
I
will ignore that aspect. I've always found it important to be challenged. I've always found it important to be purpose-driven. And above all, if there is one thing I learned in addition, is that if you can or do all that you can to work with people who are fun, that you like working with, because that is another important piece of the puzzle. You want to make a difference, and the best way to do it is to do it with a team that's also fun to work with and that shares your values, and then you don't have then the road is just smoother. Essentially, it's you will always have to work with difficult people. You will always have to do things that you don't necessarily like as part of your job. No job is perfect, but do something you like, do it with people that you like, and try to make a difference.
Okay. Nice, Anna. Okay, thank you for joining us and sharing your insights. And your perspective brings a very important dimension on understanding how flexibility can be unlocked in energy transition.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
This concludes our interview, and stay tuned for more insight on flexibility in energy systems.